This podcast was brought to you by Kittens. I would bring mine out, but she's busy tearing up the upstairs.
Hello, and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader. I woke up day one when I was so tired. And then suddenly this almighty wave of sneezing hit me. Welcome to allergy season, folks.
Yep, summer has just started, and our nemesis pollen flies through the air like an invisible death squad. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but...
only slightly for me. So, yes, he's Jonin and I'm Sven the Raisin. Let's get into this.
Indeed, let's waste no time and go into our first section, which is...
Q&A!
This is the section where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestion.
Our first question comes from Roy.
What are your expectations from a Fire Emblem mobile app?
Tell you the truth, Roy, this ought to tell you something about just the way I use my phone. I didn't even know there was one, because I don't use apps.
Yeah, well... I admittedly don't use that much apps either, but I am connected to Nintendo's Twitter, so I got the news about this. Basically, Nintendo have started getting into the mobile app market to try and, I guess, expand their potential profits, and they've already started with Miitomo, which is a kind of fun little app which is based around surveys and social networking, and it's also based around the Miis. But they've recently announced that the first two IPs they're going to use for mobile phone games are Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem. And can I just say, considering that when Fire Emblem was first released into the West, it was treated like this niche cult hit that was only really known because of Smash Brothers, into an IP so popular, Nintendo makes a mobile game of it before Mario or Zelda.
Yay, they're finally taking us seriously.
Yay, who knows, maybe we can have more focus on story-driven Nintendo games. Fat chance of that, but anyway.
Maybe, just maybe, they'll care enough to give Mario a plot line.
You poor naive fool. Anyway,
I know, right? It's the part of me that went into Game of Thrones expecting something other than blithering cynicism. Anyway, moving on.
I guess this could really go one or two ways. It could either be a watered-down version of the main strategy side of things, maybe like you have a bunch of mini-maps and you have to clear them all as fast as you can before the inevitable paywall hits.
Yeah. As it always does. I mean, I have played Facebook games. The principle is the same.
Basically, yeah, and Nintendo have confirmed that it is going to be free-to-play, although I'm hoping it might be like Miitomo, where you can play mini-games to try and get items to improve the overall game, but you only get a certain number of tries each day, and if you run out, you have to pay money if you want to keep going.
I just hope the paywall isn't like Team Fortress 2, where you can do whatever you want, but if you pay extra money, you can buy really stupid hats. But on the other hand, I kind of want that, because I want to play a Fire Emblem strategy game with Torin in a top hat, monocle, and mustache.
The only other way it could be would be to focus on the supports, but then again, I guess a small, frankly bitter part of the Fire Emblem community would decry the fact that it's even closer to becoming a full dating sim.
Which I don't see, and honestly, I think that part of the fandom is the bitter, bloody remnants of the metagamers who drove me insane in 2007. So I'm not going to pay any attention to them and say, if it focuses on the supports, I welcome it like the romantic sap that I am. P.S. I watch rom-coms. That should give you an idea of what I think of supports.
Fair enough. So, yeah, because of my lack of knowledge of apps, that's really all I can say. I mean, I would like it if there was a story to go with it, but honestly, it's probably going to be watered down, so all in all, I think that's the best answer I can give for this question. Roy's second question for this month is,
What are your favourite examples of non-linear narrative in video games?
Non-linear narratives in what way? Because there are two ways I can take that. either you mean the Fallout New Vegas style of storytelling in which there is an overarching story that you can completely ignore for 50 levels, or the David Cage pretentious style of storytelling told entirely through flashbacks.
Yeah, that's the thing. It kind of depends on who you're talking to. I mean, there's actually an interesting... There's actually an interesting chapter in Lee Sheldon's book, Character Development and Storytelling for Video Games, where he explains that two more types of non-linear narrative are one where you don't have any plot at all, and it's literally complete any event in whatever order you want, or completing all of the tasks until you reach certain, what he calls choke points. Basically, points where something happens in the main world of the narrative, and then you have to continue. In that sense, it's kind of hard to think of examples off the top of my head. I mean, part of me is tempted to use Dragon Age Origins, because even though there is an overarching plot, it consists of 6 quests that you can essentially complete in any order, although it does come back to one main ending overall. Sven, can you think of any examples off the top of your head?
I can't think of any other examples of what you listed. I can just say that I lean more toward linear storytelling because as a writer, I pretty much just follow the Fire Emblem Final Fantasy routine of telling the story. But I also see and have in fact greatly enjoyed the non-linear style, which is to say, I do way too much role-playing in Fallout New Vegas. As my 900 hours on the game can attest. In that game, the side quests really have no bearing on the main story whatever. But they do offer some amusing openings for character development, which I like.
Yeah, I can fully understand that. And that was one of the things I loved the most about Fallout New Vegas, and the only reason I haven't done quite as many playthroughs is because, sadly, I don't have that much time these days.
Well, to be fair, you have a full-time job, you have family and extracurricular activities to take care of, and just overall you have more of a life than I do. You work a job, I wait for the library to give me jobs. I'm there when they need me.
Yeah, you're the hero they deserve, etc. Anyway...
I am the snark that walks the shadows.
Swear to me! You will return that book!
Anyway,
Oh god, I'm suddenly just imagining the Silver Trout from Fallout 4. Moving swiftly on.
Oh god, yeah. I will admit that I do prefer linear storytelling most of the time, but there have been some... Fallout New Vegas is a good example of that, and also, whilst the main plot is kind of interesting, I do also like just messing around with the side quests in Vampire Masquerade, considering that some introduce touching stories, some of them produce cool action set pieces, and some of them are basically putting you in B-movie style scenarios, one of which is you're trying to take down a vampire hunter who just happens to be undercover in a strip joint.
Wow. I'm pretty sure I've encountered that book working for the library.
What's funny as well is that the quest is called something along the lines of Attack of the Sexy Vampire Hunters, so they knew it was a quest you couldn't take seriously.
Well, at least they admit it.
Oh, geez. The only other example I could think of is... Technically, I should mention Evil Under the Sun, because that was a game written by Lee Sheldon using the choke point style I was talking about, but I think a better example of that would be Xenoblade Chronicles X, because I honestly enjoyed the side quests of that game a lot more than the main story, and whilst Evil Under the Sun had a lot of merits to it, well, the main problem with this system is, call me old-fashioned, but I usually like to end a chapter on a big revelation or a character point, rather than pick up an item that you need later on.
Yeah, I mean, you've told me about the system in Evil Under the Sun, and it's kinda ridiculous. You can never leave our dimension until you pick up this travel brochure and eat this sandwich.
It's just not all tasks are equal, basically.
No.
It's a very finicky system, but yeah, overall I'd say Fallout and Xenoblade Chronicles X are probably the most positive examples I could say for non-linear narratives.
Yeah, and I'm sticking with Fallout, and I'd say Skyrim, but Skyrim is silly. Our next question comes from IZ. you and Sven mentioned TV tropes a lot, so what do you think are some good examples of the Knight of Cerebus? IZ, you know your way to my heart. This is one of my favorite tropes.
Yeah, I should explain this term, partially for people who haven't heard of that term before, and partially because it gives me more time to think of an answer. Okay, let's say you have a series which it's either comedic or it's like really light-hearted. The good guys always win and everything's looking positive and there's no threat whatsoever. And then a villain comes along who basically takes the series down a much darker path. They're quite possibly the most dangerous threat they've ever seen. They do some really, really terrible things. It's much harder to defeat him and just makes everything a whole lot worse. This can be a divisive point for the series, and sometimes, well, let's not beat around the bush, make it completely crap, but we're talking about the good examples, so yeah, I still can't think of anything. Sven, over to you.
Well, I could name several names. I mean, Zahir from The Legend of Korra comes to mind, Jasper and Steven Universe, Tyrek in My Little Pony, Azula in Avatar The Last Airbender. I mean, she killed Aang.
Briefly.
Yeah, I mean, it's Avatar. He's in the title. He wasn't going to stick in. But the point still remains. But I think the most solid example of this trope that I can think of is the Black Knight in Fire Emblem Path of Radiance.
Oh, yes.
I mean, Path of Radiance was not exactly lighthearted before Chapter 7. When the Black Knight shows up, when he does, the story's tone takes a downward shift, and Grail, the almighty badass father of the main character Ike, dies with barely a fight.
Yeah, Dayan has been shown to be kind of intimidating before this, but when the Black Knight shows up, that's when it goes from, these guys can be tricky, we better be careful, to, we are so outclassed, it's not even funny.
Yeah, before Chapter 7, the Grail mercenaries were more or less holding their own against Dayan, and as far as villain goes, Dayan was basically burned from Fire Emblem 6. But after Chapter 7, and after the Black Knight, they spend the next 11 chapters or so just on the run.
Yeah, basically, that's literally all they can do, just fight off any yacht chasing Dayan forces until they can find the exit.
Yeah, pretty much. And as far as plot effect goes, with Grail's death, the main party just kinda starts to fall apart. Because he was the linchpin of the Grail mercenaries, being the titular commander and all. And with his death, the group's two most veteran members, Shinon and Gakri, just pack up and leave because they don't want to be under Ike's command. So there's also that factoring in. When the Black Knight shows up, just the intergroup bond starts to fall apart. So I'd say that's a pretty effective story-darkening villain.
Yeah, those are all very good examples. I can only think of two more to add to that. First, just to show that we go all across the board, you mentioned that show about ponies.
Yes, I did.
I will go with a show from my childhood that's kind of an on and off guilty pleasure in my adult years, is Power Rangers. Specifically the character of Lord Zed.
Huh. I'm intrigued.
Okay, the first season of Power Rangers had a villain named Rita Repulsa, and I'm gonna be honest, she was a complete joke. She was inspired by the Wicked Witch of the West, but let's put it this way. You know a villain isn't exactly intimidating when their main catchphrase is, I have a headache.
You know what's sad? I'm pretty sure I remember that villain.
Yeah. She wasn't exactly the biggest threat in the world, but then Season 2, because, well, frankly, they didn't have enough stock footage of Rita Repulsa to continue using her, they decided to replace it with a purely American villain, and Holy crap, this guy. Okay, how to describe Lord Zed's appearance for those who haven't just googled the name already? Try to imagine a metal skeleton which is then surrounded by pulsating muscles. I think there's even like an exposed brain underneath his helmet, and this sinister red visor in front of his eyes.
Wow, Power Rangers! Wow!
Yeah, I believed in his series History of Power Rangers, Vinkara described it as what would happen if you got H.R. Geiger to make a Power Rangers villain.
That is disturbingly accurate.
Admittedly, it didn't last for very long because eventually it kind of went back to the same old goofy Power Rangers fare where he would create a monster, they would blow it up, and he would get frustrated. But you better believe that when I was a kid, that piqued the interest in the series because, well, let's face it, when you suddenly go from Goofy villain to, Mommy, this guy's going to kill me!
Yeah, to quote your Twilight Princess review, is it safe to come out yet?
In fact, what's actually kind of funny is that, as part of making him comedic, they had him marry Rita Repulsa via a love potion. Basically because... Well, yeah, basically because too many parents complained saying that he was too frightening for their children.
Wow! Wow! A villain so hardcore the network said, hey, can you maybe chill?
Basically, yes.
Unfortunately, the showrunners did not say, how about maybe you chill?
Yeah, it just kind of went a bit goofy after that. Then again, it's Power Rangers, it's always going to be goofy.
True.
So yeah, that was one example. The other one, to go back to another game we routinely praise, it's not quite as big a shift as the ones you mentioned, but Yggdrasil from Tales of Symphonia.
That's a good point, actually. He never actually struck me because, like you said, it isn't that much of a shift because Tales of Symphonia is pretty lighthearted the whole way through. But when you introduce an omnicidal maniac, there's gonna be a bit of a total shift.
Yeah, especially when you remember that, well, he comes at the same time of many big dramatic twists, one of which being that, okay, up to this point, the main bosses, the Grand Cardinals, have just been, well, let's face it, moustache-twirling villains, all with the grand, "You inferior beings will bow before me!"
Oh god, it's true. They weren't exactly threats.
Yeah, like, the most interesting thing you can say about the likes of Kavar, for example, is just their voice, and that's about it.
Yeah, and in Kavar's case, the awesome way in which he died horribly.
Yeah, basically.
Which is sad.
But not only is, without getting into too many spoilers, Yggdrasil is a much better character in terms of his motivation and development, but when he first appears, the party's been able to hold their own against pretty much everyone, and this guy freaking outclasses you.
Not just outclasses you, you cannot win. The game disallows you from winning against him. I'm pretty sure it makes it so that all of your attacks do 1 damage.
Yeah, all of your attacks do 1 damage, and even if you somehow hacked it, I found out that it's run on a time limit, which is reason why after knocking you out, he then pulls out the Eternal Sword just to rub salt in the wounds. That's the failsafe in case you somehow manage to survive for more than 2 minutes.
Yeah, so he's impossible to defeat, and his motives are, well, like I said, he's an omnicidal maniac. That's gonna change the direction of the story some.
Basically, yeah. So, with all that said, we'll move on to our second question from Infinity Zero this month, which is,
why do you think that in modern media it's so rare to find a happy married couple? You mentioned in your Street Fighter review that most fictional marriages end with one of the spouses getting killed to give other characters development.
This might devolve into a bit of a rant. I've watched a lot of sitcoms, and there is this horrible mentality about marriage, especially in the West, that it's more or less just a government-sanctioned form of slavery. First of all, I could say as someone who personally is not terribly romantic, bull. Second, I can say as someone with friends who have had very successful, productive relationships, bull. But for some reason, that's the overarching mentality that, oh god, marriage sucks, there is clearly no worse thing that can possibly happen to a person than being legally bound to someone who you're rightly supposed to love and care for. Which, I hate it, but apparently that's the mentality that everyone loves pandering to.
Yeah, I think it is just part of several bad mentalities. I think there are two more that spring to mind which are kind of the same but slightly different. The first is this bad misconception that marriage is the end. That once you're a happy couple and you're bound to each other in holy matrimony, when you have a document signed by the state and everything, that's it. That's the end. You're together forever, but otherwise nothing else can ever happen in the marriage. Which, yeah, bull, because there is a lot that can happen in a marriage. But for some reason, I think especially in video games, marriages always seem like the prize that once you get there, it's like getting a gold medal. Once you have it, that's it, you're done. Like, I love the Fire Emblem support, but once you get the rank S support and the characters are officially married, there is no attempts to continue that. You don't see them ever interacting as a couple because, again, you've got the prize, so that's it.
Yeah, like you said, that's entirely a load of crap, because just to use Fire Emblem as an example, tell me you cannot imagine Dart and Farina getting a rival man's marriage of convenience and going on treasure hunts together.
Yeah, that...
I'm tempted to write that story now. But basically...
Oh, indeed.
But basically, tell me that is not something you can see happen. Even in Fire Emblem, it doesn't have to be the end of all fun.
Indeed, yeah. On top of that, there's also the feeling that a lot of writers seem to think that you cannot have any drama in a marriage, which... Have you not seen any married couples in your life?
Clearly they didn't pay very much attention to their parents when they were younger. I don't say that to be insulting, I say that as a fact of life. It happens to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, my parents love each other very much, they're in a stable relationship, but that doesn't stop them arguing about supper every night.
Yeah, I mean, have they not paid attention to anyone at all?
Yeah, that's why I think I love it when couples stay together and do actually have those challenges. I mean, it's one of the reasons why in Friends, I did not give a toss about Ross and Rachel, but I really loved Monica and Chandler because they were the one couple in the entire series run that started out, got together, moved into the same apartment, worked out all the individual kicks, got married, and then just continued towards the end of the series trying to negotiate everything, and still having not only little bits of drama, but, well, frankly, lots of hilarious scenes because it's still a sitcom after.
Yeah, and since we're listing off really positive subversions of this trope, it's not as in-depth as your example, but Izumi and Sig Curtis in Full Metal Alchemist, who start off the story married, stay happy the entire story through, and kick ass together in the final fight. That's just awesome.
Oh god, yeah. It's also a similar reason why, okay, they don't do the badass couple thing, but it's one of the reasons why I really do like Ken and Eliza, because it's another thing, and part of the reason where I think all this fear comes from. You mentioned that some people think marriage is slavery. I think a lot of people see marriage as the terrifying side of growing up, and that's part of the reason why I freaking love Ken and Eliza, especially in Street Fighter 4, is because that is the moment when they kind of just acknowledge, yeah, Ken's a grown-up now.
Yeah, and again, very good way to just turn one of those pervasive mindsets on its head.
Indeed, yes. In fact, one of my favourite moments in possibly the Street Fighter universe is in Super Street Fighter 4. Ken has like this mental monologue, which is a great performance by, I really wish I could remember the actor's name offhand. The voice actor's name is Ruben Landon. And said monologue perfectly explores the fact that, well, Ken is a grown-up now.
Just think. Me, a dad. It feels like I'm dreaming. I guess it'll all feel pretty real once he's born, though. You and I used to just be plain old fighters, didn't we, Ryu? Then I up and got married, and now I'm on the road to fatherhood. I wish I could say I felt the same now as I did when we trained together. But things will definitely change from here on out. I'm feeling pretty strange here, Ryu. Change is good, but it can be scary, too.
Which, yeah, it's a bit soapboxy, but it's true.
Indeed, so, yeah, I think that is generally it. The main reason why is just this weird misconception that marriage is the end, it's all grown up and there's no story potential in it, which, no, if you just, well, there's no nice way about this. If you grow up and actually consider both people in a married couple, well, actual characters rather than plot devices, then yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the sum of it. And if you look at it through that mindset, rather than the mindset of, oh god, it's terrifying, it's boring, it's the end of my life, then yeah, you'll find the story potential with ease.
Definitely.
Our next question comes from Toon Junkie. If you had a sword imbued with magical powers, what powers would it have? Wow, Toon Junkie, I'm impressed. You sent us a question that makes sense.
Indeed. Well, part of me is tempted to say I would like a sword that had either light or lightning magic, just, you know, a sword that could occasionally just shoot out cool projectiles or just look really, really cool as you're cutting something. But I have a feeling that Sod's Law, it would be something like heal, so that every time I cut something it would heal them rather than do any damage.
That gives a whole new meaning to Fire Emblem Hurt and Heal. There's a reference no one will get.
So yes, Sven, what sword would you like to have?
I would love to have a sword along the lines of Magnus Gallant's final promotion in Ogre Battle 64, which is to say, yay, Elemental Blast.
Yeah.
And what I would really like to not have is a sword with blade beams, because I hate Getsuga Tencho. It's my least favorite dish on the dinner table.
Yeah, it's... Admittedly, I do also have to quote Nobuhiro Watsuki on this. He also dislikes beam blades just because, well, as he put it, a sword that doesn't cut or slash kind of defeats the point of a blade.
Yeah, a sword that doesn't cut or slash isn't a sword.
Yeah, basically, so...
It's not a sword, it's an Ichigo at that point.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny now that you mentioned it. For all our ranting about how Ichigo is the most overpowered, when you get right down to it, his powers are the most boring.
Yeah, like... Honestly, it's true. The only thing he ever does is use that damn blade beam, and that's, even with all his bullshit power-ups, the best he can do is Getsuga Tencho and slash things really hard.
Yeah, and then there's, I have unlocked Bankai, and it allows me to run really, really fast.
And slash faster, and it changes the color of my blade beam. Woo, I'm such an interesting protagonist.
For context, for those who haven't read the series, given that other characters have swords that breaks up into tiny little cherry blossom blades, swords that can freeze anything around it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the sad thing. Ichigo's lead female support, Rukia, has a way more interesting Zanpakuto than he does. Way more interesting.
Indeed, and then we also find out that Kenpachi has a sword which can cut through dimensions. Actually, thinking about it, maybe I'll have a sword like that.
To be fair, that is a pretty rockin' sword.
Indeed, so...
Just so long as you leave out the fact that its Bankai was out of character levels of boring.
Oh god, yes. So, I guess those are our answers for magical swords, and now it's time for a return to form from 2Junkie, who gives us the last question of the month.
I seem to have taken a wrong turn, and now I'm lost in the shrimp dimension. Do you know how I can get back to Cardiff?
You live in Cardiff. That makes so much sense. I mean, it's where just about every plotline in Doctor Who takes place, so I should not be surprised. Well, first I would advise you to just keep calm and look for a green warp pipe. If not, call a plumber. He'll find one for you.
I was going to say blue police box, but...
That too, those are probably more common in Cardiff.
Yeah, I guess it's either going to be that or... well, in Dragon Ball Z, you can break dimensions if you scream loud enough, so I guess prepare those luds.
This episode of Monkey Broadcast has been brought to you by yelling...
Yeah, that's my answer. Try to scream for the diaphragm.
A summary of death metal.
Oh dear. And on that note,
as always, we end the Q&A segment on the best of possible notes.
Indeed. Thank you to everyone who sent us the questions. Keep them coming. They definitely make some of the most interesting parts of the show. With that, we then move on to our next section, which is...
Reviews!
This is the section where the two of us go in depth and review something that we've read, watched, or played this month. Although, it's going to be kind of tricky because we were hoping to review Fire Emblem Fates, but as it stands, I've only been playing it for a week at the time of recording, so yeah, we're going to have to wait till next month to give a full review of that. Sorry, Sven.
Oh well, I'm the sort of man who will wait upwards of 7 months for an art commission, so I think I can hold off for a little while longer. In the meantime, though, we have to think of something to review.
Yeah, fortunately, I have seen a certain movie again recently, and I have notes pertaining to it, so now seems like a good time to bring it up. This is a movie I saw once in the cinema, and I remembered enjoying it, but the thing is, I very rarely like to give first impression reviews if I can help it. If I'm going to do, like, a serious in-depth review rather than a reactionary review I put on Twitter, I kind of like watching it again just so I can pick up on something I missed the first time. And I have done that recently, thanks to possibly the last disc I ever received from Love Film. What can I say? I watch Now TV more often than not anyways, especially with 11/22/63, which I have started watching now. Thank you, Sven. That was a good series.
Sweet.
But yes, the movie I'm talking about is Jurassic World.
This is going to be interesting, because I have not seen it even once.
That is fair enough. It is the third sequel to Jurassic Park, and I will say this. It is definitely better than the other two sequels, mainly because, well, Steven Spielberg came back to direct some of it.
And because effort was put in. I haven't seen Jurassic World, but I have seen the other two. That is 4 hours of my life I will never get back.
Yeah, those movies were
terrible. Let's just put it bluntly.
Yes, indeed. Okay, let's explain the premise of this one, which it's kind of up in the air as to whether or not they ignore the other two movies, but considering that, well, I seriously doubt a theme park would have been made if the events of the other two movies had been canon.
True.
Let's just say it's kind of hard to open a dinosaur theme park after one of the rampages through San Francisco.
I know, right? And it's also reasonable that they would completely ignore the other two, because the other two were crap.
That too. Anyway, two kids, Gray and Zach, are going to spend a weekend at Jurassic World, which is now the fully realized dream of the dinosaur theme park, which was started up by InGen, who have discovered the technology of recreating dinosaurs based on the DNA they found in mosquitoes. The theme park has now been running for many years, and part of the reason they were able to get tickets and VIP passes is because their Aunt Claire is one of the high-ranking managers running the company. But she also has problems of her own in that the park is running out of money and interest. She and the other higher-ups in InGem seem to believe that because now that dinosaurs have been recreated and have been around for a while now, they're kind of losing their appeal. Now that they're no longer extinct, they're just big lizards with teeth and spikes. So they decided the next big thing that the kids will be into is hybrids.
Okay, first of all, hi Stephen Moffat. Second of all, I can't help but think of someone now, some douchebag hipster in San Francisco saying, I like dinosaurs before dinosaurs were cool.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that.
Oh god.
That's something I'll get into a little later. But basically, one of the hybrids they've created is this new ultimate predator dinosaur called the Indominus Rex.
That is the dumbest name I've ever heard.
It's kind of dumber because it is actually a stealth pun. You see, they never actually use it in the movie, but the abbreviation is the I-Rex.
As in I-Rex?
No, as in, one of the supposed themes they're trying to do is making fun of building bigger and better attractions to satisfy corporate greed. Get it? I-Rex. Ah ha ha ha. Yeah.
Oh, God. Really? Honestly, at this point, the jokes have reached the point where I have officially bought the Apple I don't care.
Yeah, so whilst they're looking at this I-Rex, Claire's boss says that they want to make sure that the I-Rex is secure in its paddock. And to do that, he wants her to contact another park employee named Owen Grady, played by Chris Pratt, to have a look at them. He is part of an entirely separate project that is basically training velociraptors as a hunting pack.
Yeah, and this is the part of Jurassic World that I am actually familiar with. And it's the point where Jurassic World starts taking an uncomfortable amount of notes the manifesto of Senator Armstrong.
Yeah, that is part of a dumb plot line. But again, I'll get into that later. Owen agrees to have a look at this cage, but the problem is, whilst he's inspected it, the I-Rex manages to get out, and it's now wreaking havoc, because having a giant predator dinosaur that can eat people alive with one bite is already bad enough. But the problem is, because it's an artificial creature that has lived in captivity all of its life, and has no idea what anything is, it is a creature that basically kills everything for the sake of it. And unlike the previous Jurassic Park, where there was only about 6 or 8 people in it, it's filled with visitors.
Suddenly, Jurassic Park becomes one of my typical games of Zoo Tycoon.
Basically, yes. So the race is now on to try and contain the I-Rex and bring it down before it causes any more damage, like, oh, I don't know, accidentally smashing into a cage and letting other dinosaurs run out all over the place.
No. Looks like the fox got in the henhouse.
I admit the premise sounds goofy, but
Sounds, and for the record, is. But, I mean, it's Jurassic Park, I guess.
yeah, that's true. But the thing is, the reason why I say the movie is a lot better than the past two movies is because, well, in terms of all the technical side of things, like the pacing, the acting, and the way it's filmed, it is so much better. Like, the other two, they were basically cheap horror movies with dinosaurs. There's no way about it. Like, in Lost World, there is a brief moment where we go, oh, this Stegosaurus, it's so beautiful. Oh god, it's trying to spike me.
Oh god, my spleen!
Yeah, so the first opening parts of the movie, it really sells you on how cool this theme park is. Like, you see all of these kids wandering around playing with the dinosaurs, watching the T-Rex eat a goat from behind glass, and there's actually a pretty fun scene where, okay, one of the new creatures they've introduced is a mosasaur, which, the best way I can describe it is, Imagine a crocodile the size of a whale.
Honestly, one of my favorite dinosaurs.
Yeah. It leaps up and eats an entire shark with one bite, and then as it's coming back down, it creates a splash so immense it drenches everyone in the audience.
So much better than SeaWorld.
Yeah, it kind of tells you that, okay, if this theme park actually did exist, it would be really freaking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, given the right security measures.
Indeed, yeah. And there are also some fun little details in there, like one of the most realistic is when the IREX first breaks out, they start issuing an park evacuation, which basically means that all the rides are closed, and there's like this scrawny little teenager who's running one of the rides, and he turns round to the massive queue behind him and says, "Sorry guys, the ride's closed. Come on, I just work here."
Oh god, having just experienced the retail side of being a librarian, I can actually relate to that teenager.
Yeah, it's little details like that give credence to the world and also fully establish everything, before everything turns to crap. And even when it does, it doesn't just go quickly for the jump scares and messy kills. It understands that sometimes the most tense scenes are when you're just lying in front of a car and the beast is just sniffing the air around you and you're just praying to God that it goes away.
Yeah, either that or you're praying for Donkey Kong to suddenly show up and punch it to the moon. I hear he does that with dinosaurs.
I don't think it's gonna happen this time.
Although that would make an amazing crossover.
Oh god, it would. But anyway,
moving on.
All of the stuff on the technical level is good, like the pacing is good, and the acting is really good as well. Like, okay, there are some characters I think are kind of dumb, but they're all made, at the very least, somewhat likable. Like, you don't want them to die, and that's purely because of the great performances. The child actors are really good, and of course the stand-up performances are Chris Pratt as Owen Grady and Bryce Dallas Howard as Claire. They both give really good performances and bring their characters to life and make them just a fun crew to be with and ones you want to see make it through the journey of life. Where it fails is the script and the story because, well, I called it goofy before, but there are times when it is just dumb. Like, really, really, really dumb.
So I've heard. I'm thinking of one character in particular here.
Yeah. Some of it comes down to small elements, like I mentioned there's good pacing too, the dinosaurs being intimidating threats, but when they do start attacking people, well, okay, I can understand the IREX having some superpowers, but even the Velociraptors suddenly gain superhuman abilities. Like, okay, I don't care how fast a Velociraptor is or how vicious they are. I seriously doubt they could smash through the windscreen of a van at full speed, okay?
Actually, that's a point, because when you get down to it, dinosaurs were birds. They were light.
Yeah, basically, and it's even more ridiculous when, okay, the helicopter crashes into the aviary, which is where all the pteranodons and, I forget their names offhand, but smaller pteranodons that have chompy jaws. Dimorphodons, for the record. They're all set loose, and they all decide, well, we've gained freedom, what's the first thing we do? I know, let's attack every single human we see, despite the fact that, okay, there's a reason pteranodons have pointed beaks. It's not because they are javelins of death, it's because they catch fish with a bite. There is no reason for them to try and grab a human in its jaws, despite the fact that a human is twice its size.
Yeah, okay, that's just dumb. They may be carnivores, but that's not a catch-all for people eater. I mean, house cats don't try to eat us. Most of the time.
Why are pterodactyls so evil?
Because it taps slightly bit more into the horror category, it does lead to some very questionable aspects, like, if you're trying to contain the IREX, why would you build a gate that's large enough for it to get out?
I know, right?
And on top of that, why would you use that as the main entrance, for God's sake?
Also true.
But elements like that, you can go, okay, what do you want? It's cinematic license. These things happen all the time. But the most questionable elements get into the themes it tries to include in the story. Like, okay, a lot of people praise Jurassic Park for the dinosaurs and the action scenes, which, due credit, those bits were awesome, but Jurassic Park did have some very smart ideas in there as well. Like, one of my favourite scenes in Jurassic Park is the debate over lunch, where they do actually debate, okay, this is all awesome and all, but is it actually right for us to do this kind of thing? And it actually does have some of my favourite exchanges in it. Like, you've got Hammond on one extreme who's going, I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists are doing amazing things which have never been done before. And you've got the rather cynical Dr. Malcolm who responds with, yes, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they never stopped to think if they should.
I'm pretty sure I've seen someone make a joke out of that line on Tumblr.
Yeah, it's a scene that can apply to most things, in fairness, but yeah, the closest thing we ever get to that is a scene which is actually based on part of the original Jurassic Park novel, which, when the I-Rex is unleashed, and we find out that it is not only hyper-intelligent, it also has the ability to use camouflage and suppress its heat signature.
What?
Yeah, one of the higher-up characters goes to Dr. Wu, who created it, and basically to ask, okay, what the hell, why'd you give a dinosaur these abilities?
Somehow I think that plays into the Senator Armstrong plotline that I mentioned earlier.
Admittedly it does, but I am slowly getting to that. The reason why it's an intense scene is because said higher-up then starts getting indignant and tells Wu that he's going to shut down his lab over this, but Dr. Wu then starts making some intelligent counter-arguments.
You are acting like we are engaged in some kind of mad science. But we are doing what we have done from the beginning. Nothing in Jurassic World is natural. We have always filled gaps in the genome with the DNA of other animals. And if their genetic code was pure, many of them would look quite different. But you didn't ask for reality. You asked for more teeth.
I never asked for a monster.
Well, to be fair, that is kind of true. I mean, here lately, scientists have been speculating that T-Rexes actually look like giant fat canaries, so who knows what they look like.
Funny that Sven chose that particular bird.
Monster is a relative term. To a canary, a cat is a monster. We're just used to being the cat.
This is honestly the closest the film gets to having an intelligent discussion, because it tries to include themes, but it really kind of falls flat. The I-Rex can be an allegory for one of two things, and the first, which they're pressing very heavily in the beginning, is how it's meant to be a metaphor for commercialism, and how by focusing on bigger, better, cooler, and everything like that, it kind of removes the heart and soul and makes you lose focus, which, yeah, okay, I can kind of see that, what with the I-Rex being a creature that kills purely for the sake of it, but on the other hand, The Phantom Menace is a terrible movie that relies way too much on its special effects and kind of lost the soul of Star Wars. Even the most hyperbolic fan will admit that the film doesn't try to eat you alive.
Well, to be fair, that is one thing in its favor.
Yeah, it's like, they kind of start off with this whole idea of, well, they have lines like, it's progress Grady, and they then responds with the line, well, maybe progress should lose for once, which is...
A summary of the United States.
Yeah, it's just... They try to press this point throughout the beginning of the movie, but it just looks incredibly goofy, especially since, ultimately, again, we're not talking about a movie on iPhone, we're talking about a gigantic monster that's killing people.
Fair point, right?
It's a point they're trying to emphasize, but it makes no context in the world, and you made a joke earlier about how there is a hipster. But one of the guys in the control room is the epitome of that. Like,
God.
Claire is doing her rounds, like looking on the staff, and then she makes a cough when she sees one of the staff members. He's wearing a shirt with the original Jurassic Park logo on it, and she's just going, don't you think it's offensive to be wearing a t-shirt in celebrating a park where several people died? And he goes, yeah, I know, but that first park was legitimate, man. It just had purely dinosaurs. It didn't have any of this hybrid stuff in it.
Oh god, they simultaneously captured the whole obnoxiously, obsessively retro side of the hipster subculture, as well as that god-awful, dead-eyed, artless mentality of, oh, we were so much better before cell phones and technology and fire, Thomas Edison was a witch.
Basically, yeah. What I find even more hypocritical about that is, okay, the only evidence in the entire movie is a blink and you'll miss it Easter egg that Dr. Malcolm has written a book called God and Dinosaurs, but aside from that, there is no evidence that they ever talked about this park. How the hell does he even know it existed? And even if he did know if it existed, the park was never open to the public. He has no idea what the heck it was going to be like.
Oh, wow.
He's basically comparing the fully functional park to a vague idea that literally never got off the ground.
I'm not sure I have words for that, because that's just... that doesn't seem metaphysically possible.
Basically, yeah, but you could also say that the I-Rex is an allegory for drone weapons, about, oh, when you create something purely to kill, when you mess with nature to create weapons, this is what you get. And that's also equally stupid, because this is where we finally talk about the plot Sven's been hinting to. The reason Owen Grady is training raptors is because there is a man from InGen known as Hoskins. Now, he firmly believes that drone technology is useless, that we should be focusing on using dinosaurs in the military front lines, because, as he put it, evolution gave us the perfect killing machine 65 million years ago. And he is constantly raving on about this, as he'll often be petting a raptor and going, imagine this thing, running through caves in Afghanistan, hunting terrorists.
God, it's Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah. Most people in the movie can't stand him, mainly because they see him as an idiot who doesn't realize what he's messing with. I can't stand him because, well, there's a reason we aren't using dinosaurs in the front lines. It's the same reason we don't use wolves on the front lines. It's also the same reason we barely use dogs on the front lines. They are animals which you barely can control at the best of times, but you're throwing them into a combat situation which they might run away from, assuming that the bullets don't shred through them first.
Yeah, and I mean, again, these people are talking about dinosaurs as if they're Godzilla. They're not. They are fat birds with instincts.
Basically, yeah. I mean, yeah, a Velociraptor is very fast and very intelligent and all that, but let me introduce you to this weapon. It's called a landmine. One hit of that and they're gone.
And if that doesn't work, if you bring up T-Rex, let me just introduce you to my friend Moab.
Yeah, none of this would make any practical sense out there. And the whole reason he loves this is because I once had a wolf pup when I was young, and it stayed with me for most of my life. And then one day, my ex-wife tried to kill me with a knife, and the wolf bit her arm off.
There's a reason why I compare this guy to Armstrong. Nothing about him makes sense. Logically, nothing makes sense here. The only difference is Senator Armstrong had so bad it's good charm.
Yeah, honestly, the one positive thing I can say about Hoskins is how he eventually bites the bullet is because it's eventually revealed that, yeah, like Sven said, part of the reason they were building the IRX is because they wanted military weapons, and in fact he says that the next stage is to make an IRX that's smaller.
Which just seems counterproductive if nothing else, because again, let me introduce you to my good friend rocket-propelled grenades.
But yeah, Oskins has mentioned that he's planning to make further hybrids, and he starts going, thousands of years of evolution. And what have we learned? And then before he can continue, a velociraptor leaps in and starts attacking him.
Oh my god, it's like Samuel L. Jackson's death in Deep Blue Sea.
There is a lot of dumb moments in the script, and the reason I give so much credit to the actors is because, honestly, there are only 2 characters I genuinely like. The rest of the cast, they're not bad. Like I said, they have enough personalities that you want to see them make it out alive, but honestly, the only reason Owen Grady's likable is because he's played by Chris Pratt. Everything else about him, it's just this smug, ridiculously knowledgeable douche of a man, basically. Like, he is this action figure. That's basically all he is. He's this man who is very good at a physical fight, somehow knows everything about dinosaurs, even ones like the IRX, which he's only just been introduced to, despite the fact that, okay, it made sense that the original cast of Jurassic Park knew how the dinosaurs were going to react because they're scientists and paleontologists, it's their job to study these kind of fields. This guy's an ex-Marine, and yet he suddenly knows everything about how animals behave.
Yeah, basically he's Star-Lord, minus the Han Solo charm, and plus a whole bunch of needless info dump.
Basically, yeah, although, to be honest, it's the Han Solo style charm that's the only thing that keeps him from being insufferable, so... And then you got Gray, who... He's meant to be the awkward child nerd, but he's written in a way by someone who has never seen a nerdy child. Like, this is someone who sees the awesome sight of a mosasaur bite a shark in one blow. And he's going, yay! Did you know it had 32 teeth?
Oh, God.
Every way they try to make him look nerdy just makes him look unnatural. And not that they're unlikable, it's just that they play way too closely to their archetypes. But there are 2 characters I do genuinely like. The first is Gray, just because, well, out of all the characters, he's the one whose growth actually felt kind of subtle. He is the teenage brother. He is basically the most realistic teenager you could possibly imagine. Like, when he's saying goodbye to his parents, it's like, yeah, okay. And then when they're first getting around the park, he's like, okay, yeah, come on, Zach, let's look at the dinosaur things. But
God, I used to know a lot of people like that. They weren't me because I was the most overly emotional teenager you've ever met. But I knew a lot of people like that when I was 15.
Yeah, basically, and he has that kind of relationship with his brother where he seems to be barely tolerating his existence, but he does open up and have a bit more fun as they're introduced to the awesome rides, and after a point which, to be honest, comes out of nowhere, and if it didn't motivate Gray's actions in the next few scenes, I would wonder why the hell they brought it up, because out of nowhere, Gray suddenly goes, oh, by the way, when our parents get divorced, who do you think you'll stay with? What? Our parents are getting divorced. They're hiring lawyers. They could be hiring lawyers for anything. I googled them. They're divorce lawyers.
I don't know, but every reference to Google nowadays just makes me laugh.
Yeah, so out of nowhere he reveals, oh yeah, parents are getting divorced. I'm going to cry now. And a lot of people give Zach flack because his initial reaction seems to be a bit douchey. Like, what does it matter? I'm going to leave in like 2 years anyway.
The psychologist in me says, coping mechanism.
Basically, yeah, in fact, that's actually the point. That's why I would defend Zach, because, well, he's a teenager. He's not Chris Pratt. He's not going to know the answers instantly. Like, the people forget, teenagers aren't geniuses. He literally doesn't know how to deal with this, so that motivates him to start trying to have more fun and lighten his mood a bit. But then, when inevitably the IRX finds them and starts trashing their gyrosphere, which is the vehicle they were using to see some of the dinosaurs, he steps up and actually manages to help Gray escape from the dinosaur, and from that point on, he's just being like this calm pillar of support. Like, he's the one who's going, it's okay, Gray, we'll make it through this, we'll find a way out somehow. And when they do end up in dangerous situations, he's the quick-thinking one who tries to find ways out. So, yeah, I just liked it because it was a very subtle growth, and it also felt the most natural. Yeah, occasionally you'll have an older teenage brother who will argue with you a lot of the times, or just flat out ignore your existence, but frankly, they don't want anything bad to happen to you, and will step up to help you when the chips are down. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I really like him as a character.
You know, from a movie with possibly the dumbest military plotline since Revengeance, that's a surprising level of depth.
Indeed, and I also did like the character of Claire, Bryce Dallas Howard, although admittedly not for the reasons the movie was going for, because I just felt sorry for her in the beginning of the movie. The reason why is because every single person she meets on her day to work keeps preaching at her, basically to imply, this is what your character arc is going to be, Claire. Like, she meets with one of the higher-ups, and he goes, how's the park doing? And she goes, well, the sales numbers have been slowly declining, but the merchandise is still selling out. And he goes, no, I mean, how are the people enjoying it? Well, we seem to be getting feedback, and, oh, Claire, the park was not built for profits. It should be about having fun. And Claire tries to point out that actually someone does actually have to run the park and the financial side of things. But no, the movie's not having any of it. The higher up still keeps on going, you should just learn to enjoy life and stop focusing on this kind of...
At that point, any reasonable human being would be like, wow, and here I thought they employed actual adults in this park.
Oh god, yeah, and it's just, if he was the only one, that'd be sort of okay, but basically everyone she talks to is preaching at her. Like, she meets Chris Pratt and he starts going on, oh, you need to stop trying to take control of everything. And when she meets the kids for the first time, she gives them VIP passes and then says, okay kids, I'm sorry, I've got work to do, just stay around out of my aid here, she'll take care of you, and I need to sort out some meetings, okay, bye. And then she gets a phone call from her sister, the kids' parents, and she starts crying when she says, wait, you're not with the kids? Oh god, why can't you spend time with the children? It was supposed to be a magical weekend and everything. And it was something that initially I didn't pick up on the first time, because I thought, oh, this is a very tiresome character arc, but watching it the second time, with a mindset that was pointed out by Double Toasted's review of the film, I kind of wanted her to say, yeah, I'm sorry I can't spend the time with the kids, but there's a reason for that. I'm working! I'm on the clock right now! I am driving to the next meeting as I speak, and no, I can't reschedule! They are very fussy people!
It's almost as if this park needs staff to run it so that the plot of the third movie doesn't happen.
Yeah, basically, it's like everyone is preaching at her. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if she just goes to the coffee bar afterwards and like, okay, one cappuccino? Okay, I can give you a cappuccino. But you know, you should relax. You shouldn't let the stresses of life get to you.
Oh god, I want to have that run as a skit now. Because I could just see it happening now, just knowing this woman's life.
Yeah, I feel really sorry for her. Like, she eventually steps up and gets involved in the action, but the idea of it is meant to be, this woman who lets go of her uptight nature and starts to appreciate that the dinosaurs are animals and that there is more to life than just her career. But, to be honest, I interpret it more as the woman who is just trying to do a very difficult and stressful job, but people keep undermining and judging her every single step of the way.
For some reason, I think a lot of working people can relate to that plotline.
Yeah, and they try to mitigate it by her sister is calling from a completely separate board meeting during a break to show that, oh, see, she's a successful businesswoman and she can have time for kids.
No, she may have time for kids, but not on the clock. It's one thing if you're in a job where you're not doing like the latter hours of a library shift, I can tell you are the most boring thing since Shakespeare. But in Claire's position, it's like, okay, he's on the clock, helping to run a very dangerous theme park. Bugger off!
Indeed. So, there is a lot of things, but like I said, the acting and the technical side of things do help elevate it, and what makes it a lot of fun and a lot better than the other two movies is the finale, which is so stupid it comes right back around to being awesome. If you don't want spoilers, you might want to skip ahead a few minutes. Okay. So, the Indominus Rex has been rampaging, and the Velociraptors were out of control, and finally, Owen manages to get them all back on his side. And so, the final battle for the park begins. The Raptors versus the Indominus Rex. And unsurprisingly, the Raptors are getting their asses handed to them.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, what, 4 feet tall?
Yeah, they're kind of being swatted aside, and Gray suddenly says a stupid line along the lines of, "We need more teeth!" And that suddenly gives Claire an idea. She runs up to one of the gates and yells to the few people in the control room, "Open paddock 19! Do it!" And then she opens up a flare. And it turns out paddock number 19 is where the T-Rex is kept.
And we do mean the T-Rex.
Indeed. And it leads to the only misstep of this entire sequence, which is she then ignites a flare in order to get the T-Rex's attention, and then runs at full speed in order to lure it straight to the Indominus Rex. The reason I say this is a misstep is because she does so in heels.
Funny you should use the term misstep. Because I'm amazed one of those didn't happen.
Yeah, it is really weird. Like, Owen had already mentioned that her shoes are the most impractical things he's ever seen, especially for walking in the jungle. And they have a close-up of her running in these goddamn shoes, and some people have tried to claim that, oh, it's symbolism because it shows that she can be an action woman while not abandoning femininity. F*** off. It is a stupid fashion choice, end of story.
I get that whole message they're trying to go for, but it doesn't apply here because you're running from a dinosaur.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, I went to see it in the cinema with my mother, and she was saying that she, to this day, still hasn't figured out how Bryce Dallas Howard was able to run in those heels. And it really says something when you have a woman being chased by the T-Rex and she's the least convincing thing about the shot. But anyway, it's been filled with dumb moments until now, but then we get to the freaking awesome bit, because like I said, she lures the T-Rex with the flare straight into the path of the Indominus Rex, and it is an all-out dinosaur brawl.
First of all, a scene that would make Turok himself. Second of all, cue the Godzilla theme.
Oh god, yeah, because the T-Rex is wrestling with the Indominus, but it's just too powerful, and the Indominus has the Rex down on the floor, but then the Velociraptor comes back, leaps onto it to distract it, which allows the Rex to get back up, and there's actually one brief shot where the Raptor leaps off the Indominus Rex's back and rides the T-Rex for a brief moment before starting his attack again.
Hi-yo Silver!
It's this amazing fight where the two dinosaurs are just smashing everything, they're wrestling with each other, and then it gets to the stalemate where they get the I-Rex on the floor, but it gets back up and roars as if to say, oh, very clever, but now it's my turn. Unfortunately, it wasn't paying attention. It's too close to the lake, so the mosasaur leaps out, grabs its neck in its jaws, and pulls it straight back into the lake.
Speaking of scenes that remind me of Samuel L. Jackson's death in Deep Blue Sea, we're we're going to sit down, shut up, and figure this. Oh God, my face!
Yeah, and it's dragged into the water, and it lets out this pitiful roar, which is basically the dinosaur equivalent of no.
Somewhere, Darth Vader is feeling pity.
Oh, it is such a ridiculous moment, but it is an awesome way to end a movie. I'm not gonna lie.
When rule of cool works.
Indeed, especially since as soon as that's over, the T-Rex and Raptor stare at each other, and it's like they're saying, "We cool? Yeah, we're cool."
Just imagine it's Full Metal Alchemist now. The fist bump between Armstrong and Curtis after they kill Sloth.
Unfortunately, they can't do a fist bump, but they do almost like a respectable nod, like, "Dude fought well."
You were a worthy companion, little one. You were a worthy steed, big one.
Oh, jeez.
Also, yeah, to be honest, I would be amazed if a T-Rex could do a fist bump with those arms.
Yeah, so that is Jurassic World, ladies and gentlemen. It is ridiculous at times, it is dumb, but it does have a lot of heart to it. It has really good direction and acting, and yeah, just that sequence alone justified it all. Because of that, I was able to come out of both the cinema viewing and the DVD viewing thinking, yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed myself.
And I guess that's all that matters.
Yeah, so I wouldn't really say Jurassic Park is still the better movie, and I don't know if I describe it as a good movie in any stretch of the imagination, but it is definitely a fun time. If you're just in the mood for something you can laugh with and laugh at in equal measure, then by all means watch this movie.
I know I've been making this comparison a lot, but it is basically the Metal Gear Rising of movies.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I don't like Metal Gear Rising. It doesn't have the cynical part of its ending, so
that's always a plus. And at least the equivalent of Senator Armstrong is given an undignified death.
Oh God, yes. And with that, we move on into our final section, which is
Quick Fire Reviews.
This is the section where we review everything else we've read, watched, or played, but within the maximum time limit of 60 seconds. And now I need to think of some stuff.
I've had a riveting month, clearly, because I don't think I have a quickfire review either.
Unfortunately, most of the stuff I have played, I'm saving for future reviews later on, but I think I can manage one quickfire review. So, starting this up.
Cathedral City. That is a very tasty cheese. Can be a bit rubbery at times, but otherwise enjoyable.
That is all.
And on a slightly less too junky note, I actually have something that I've kind of looked through since you remind me that it actually happened.
Boruto the manga, the sequel to Naruto, and to my great surprise, so far, just a retelling of the Boruto movie. So far, because it's just a retelling of that movie, I can say a bit what I said of the movie. It's decent so far, not as good as the start of the original Naruto, but hey, I'll take anything over where Naruto went in the end, so we're off to a better start than we were.
Yeah, I've seen the first few chapters of that now that you mention it, and I actually feel kind of embarrassed that I forgot about it. But yeah, it is a nice, good start to that new series, and didn't they add in a flash forward that says it is going to go somewhere, it's not just a movie retread, or was that in the movie too?
No, that wasn't in the movie, so I guess they planned this out well ahead of time, because the flash forward had significantly older characters.
Indeed, so yeah, we can hope that it still maintains focus on the characters rather than, I'm a Uchiha.
Speaking of that flash forward, I have a little personal message to deliver to the apparent villain of that storyline. Kaliki, please, for the love of Jesus, don't turn into Sasuke. Or Amon.
Yes, that is something we would like to avoid. And on that note, that concludes this month's Monkey broadcast. As usual, if you have anything you want to say about our reviews, or if you would like to submit any questions, place them in the comment section. That's what it's there for, and we're grateful for anything you can give us. But for now, we need to sign off, and I need to get back to playing Fire Emblem Fates for the big review we'll have next month. Until then, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader. Raptors and landmines, folks. Think about it.
That was Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright was misused, send an email to thejoninmonkey@yahoo.co.uk. For more news and media reviews, follow me on Twitter @thejoninmonkey, and go to thejoninmonkey.podbean.com for previous podcasts and MP3 downloads. All music used belongs to the original owners. Until next month, have fun, kids!